me, or did all this just expand when I pulled it out? Hello everyone and welcome to the Garden Rescue. I'm Guillaume. I hope you've all had a great week. So I got pretty lucky actually. I stumbled into this property on the way home from last week's job. So no driving around for 3 hours this time, which was a good change. Anyway, I pulled over and unfortunately I didn't get an answer at the door. So I spoke to two neighbours. They told me they were both certain someone was living there. Unfortunately, one of my interactions with the neighbour across the road was accidentally deleted, but I spoke to a lovely elderly lady across the road and she told me she had met the man once to ask him if she could pick his avocados, which I can tell you there was a lot of avocados on this tree. Now, she told me that she wouldn't mind and actually that it would be a good idea if I cleaned this garden up, so that gave me the confidence to do that, even though I technically didn't have permission. So I really hope the homeowner doesn't mind what I've done to their place because it's quite different now. But the first thing I noticed pulling up was the nature strip. Unfortunately, it was completely dead. I think the council had probably been spraying it with chemicals, as there was a clean line where you could see that it had died off. So unfortunately, we weren't going to be able to do too much about that. But the lawn, on the other hand, probably some of the tallest lawn that my little Ferrari has had to tackle. It was also pretty much covering up half of the house and also completely covering up a garden bed on the left-hand side of the property. This garden bed was also a nightmare in and of itself and needed a lot of work. There were roses all over the property that I'm sure had never been trimmed once. Then over to the right hand side of the property alongside the driveway, there was another garden bed. Well, you wouldn't have thought that. It was completely overgrown. There was a lot of kikuyu and rubbish. It was just really dense. Again, the roses along this side of the house had also probably never been pruned in their whole lives. And then lastly, there were just piles and piles of leaves just littered along the property. I filled up both the green bins and probably did 4 or 5 dump runs. Quite a bit of work went into this one. It was almost a fire hazard, really. So I really hope you guys enjoy the before and after photos. And if you like the work that I do, you can subscribe below. It's completely free and it really helps the channel grow. As always, I want to thank you all so much for the support. And now let's get straight into the video. Find yourself with this many leaves, one thing you could do is make leaf mold. All you need to do is bag them up in a bit of plastic, put a little bit of water in there, let it sit against the side of your house. When you come back in a year or two, you're going to have one of the best soil conditioners you can possibly get, especially if you have clay soils. This is the best for it. Alright, we're gonna have to come back tomorrow because it's just too windy. I've been trying to wait between the wind to talk and to do things, but here it comes again. So we're gonna come back tomorrow. We can't even blow these leaves onto the lawn, even if we tried. It's just an absolute nightmare trying to move these leaves. But once we come back tomorrow, we'll get the rest of these leaves up. We can start working on the garden beds and the side of the house. So I'll see you guys then for that. Alright, we're back on day 2. The wind situation is a lot more acceptable now, so we're going to be able to get some work done. Now this green bin has been mysteriously moved out the front in the last couple of days. I didn't do it, so... No, I didn't. Yeah, it's moved twice. It just goes to show I think someone is living here. Don't know why they haven't come out while I've been using the power tools or anything. But anyway, now we can make our way over to the garden bed. So this is what we're going to try and attempt to clear next. As you can probably see here, there's a brick border that we're going to try and bring up the whole way down to the driveway. So we've still got a few leaves to tidy up. Then we've got a lot of roses here. These guys have become so leggy, we're going to give them a really hard prune. And then, funnily enough, we've got another variegated holly here. We just worked on one in the last video. This one here is the neighbours, so we're just going to cut it back to the fence line, get that mailbox visible again. So it's probably going to be a lot of work getting this kikuyu out, but it's going to look so much better when we're done. I feel bad for anyone who had to leave mail in this letterbox. Sorry for removing some of the flowers, but I don't think these roses have been pruned in their whole lives, and they really need to be pruned back, otherwise they're just going to keep growing spindly and it's not going to look very nice. So the flowers will come back in no time because it's summer. Roses basically can't die either, so we'll be good. See this bottom layer decomposing here? We're going to leave that in there because that's really good for the soil. Just me, or did all this just expand when I pulled it out? Didn't seem like there was this much stuff. Alright, you might be wondering why I removed this fig. It's not supposed to be here. Well, it was definitely a drop seed. It wasn't planted here on purpose. This garden bed is a bit small to have a fig tree growing in it, and it's right in between these two roses, which I want to bring back to life. In about a month's time, when these roses get full again, it's going to look really nice. This is a great example of what having a lot of leaves in your garden beds can do over a lot of years. You can see a lot of the leaves are broken down in the soil here, and if you look at the actual soil itself, it is some of the best soil I've ever seen in my life. I'm not joking. And I'd say it's partly thanks to these decomposing leaves, which have probably been here for at least a couple of years. My phone battery is dying, so I'll see you tomorrow, where we can finish up this garden bed and then get started on the other garden bed. There's the other garden bed we're going to be working on tomorrow. Lots of kikuyu to pull out of there and a lot of roses to trim back. So see you tomorrow. Alright, we're back with a full battery. We can get some more work done. One thing I do need to invest in is a battery pack for my phone, as I can only film for about 2 hours and then I have to go home, charge it, and then come back again. We're just going to clean up the roses really quickly, tidy up along the border, and then we're done here. Not going to cut too much off this one because it's grown quite nicely over the trellis there. So basically just going to clear up the stuff growing onto the driveway. Also going to get rid of most of these suckers down here. walkway to the side of their house. A little bit tricky to navigate with those date palms, so we're going to trim them back. There's a rose in here that's gone completely crazy. I think the best thing to do is probably just prune it right back down to the main trunk. And we'll probably come across a few other bits and pieces while we're in there, so we're going to get started on that now. Also, these bins have mysteriously moved here once again. Someone's definitely living here. But anyway, let's get started. Ow! Ah! These guys will puncture just about any type of glove. Ow! I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's completely tangled up into this lemon tree. Have a look. See it? It's really trapped, trying to expand, but it can't. You can see there, it's a lot of it's flexing because the lemon tree is growing over the top of it. So a bit of work here. That lemon tree is in the garden bed, but the date palm's just outside of the garden bed. Growing a little bit big for where it is. I don't know if there's room for both of these here. We're going to try and get rid of as much of these palms off as we can, and then see how the lemon tree looks from there. Ah! Stabbed me right in the skull. Oh. Gonna need a hard hat next time. Up. nice now. This rose really needed a reset. If you let your roses get completely out of hand, this is the best thing to do. You could even cut them back even harder than this. You won't see it from here, but there's a lot of nodes here that are going to sprout new shoots. It's going to be a lot more manageable when it's not 10 feet tall. One thing you should do if you give them a really hard trim is give them some feed and put some rose food, put some pellets around the base. It's not necessary, but it will help a lot. But anyway, this one's pretty much done. Got a little bit of that one left to do. Then we're going to try and sort out what's going on over here. I wish I could fast forward in time to show you how nice these roses are going to look in a month's time, because some of you might think I've just completely butchered them, but don't worry, they are going to come back better than ever. So now this garden bed's opened up, we can start attacking this kikuyu here, which is not supposed to be here, and then get started on the last rose. See, they once tried to train it on here, but it didn't work. I bet you've never seen a lemon tree with leaves like this, and that's because this is mistletoe. It's actually a completely different plant that latches itself onto the trunk of the lemon tree and roots itself inside the lemon tree, basically sucking all the water and life out of the lemon tree. Pretty crazy how nature works sometimes. But yeah, this is a parasite plant. Here you can still see the lemon tree. It's actually suffering quite a bit. Honestly, it might be too late for the lemon tree, but we'll see what we can do. To get rid of mistletoe, you can't simply cut this back. You basically need to find out where it's latched onto and cut at least 30 centimeters below that point. So if you come closer, I'm not sure if you can see it here, but this is the knuckle. So here we've got the lemon tree, and then here we've got the mistletoe. You can see it's kind of wrapped itself around the branch of the lemon. So all of that would have to go now, and anything else on the tree will also have to go. Here's something else you may not have seen before. See these lumps in the stems of the lemon tree? These are called gall wasps. They're actually little insects. They lay eggs in the stems of the lemon trees, and they swell up like that, and you can see little holes when they escape. I'm not sure if you can see that, but these ones have already hatched. I'm not sure if you can see the little holes. But yeah, these are kind of disgusting, and will eventually kill your tree. This one is completely infested with it. It's called gall wasp. Look at how disgusting this is. This is a massive gall wasp nest. See the attachment site right here? It's a big knuckle around the lemon tree there. So unfortunately a lot of it's got to come off. Summer as well, not the best time to do a pruning like this, but if we let it go, the mistletoe is just going to kill it anyway. Can't really win, but better to get rid of the mistletoe, I think. Look, found some new growth here. I think we've just cut back just enough for something so small, but it's crazy. Just about every limb is affected by this stuff.
This is still a bit of a hazard here, so I'm gonna have to try and cut these back a bit more. That did the trick. Still got a lot of stuff to put in here before I do the second mow, and then we're pretty much done. guys, I got a little excited, got the Ferrari out and forgot to hit record. We're going to go over it on a lower setting, pick up all the debris that we've blown onto the lawn, and it's going to look so much better when we're done. The amount of times that's whacked me on the head and pulled my hair, so frustrating. I'm sure it'll be a lot nicer if it's trimmed back a little bit higher. Some of these branches are hanging pretty low. I'm just going to attempt to trim back some of the lower hanging branches and then we're done here. If anyone knows why this avocado wasn't fruiting around the bottom of the tree, let me know. I assume probably sunlight. These are where the fruit are supposed to be. I mean, you can see there's like an attempt at an avocado there, if you can call it that. If anyone knows why, let me know, because they've got a lot of fruit at the top of the tree.